Welcome to a special episode of Illuvium Insider. This is going to be the video I wish I had, so I don't have to read anything to learn about the Illuvium Land Sale. Kieran is here with me, co-founder of Illuvium, and the two of us, we've talked about it. We don't like reading. We like listening to podcasts. We like watching videos to learn. And so we're making the video we wish we had to know everything there is to know about Illuvium Land. Kieran, how you doing?
I'm going pretty good, Andrew. How are you?
Wonderful. We're going hard on land right now. We've got so much to talk about and so much to share with everyone about Illuvium Land. Here's what's on the agenda, everybody. It's a gigantic agenda. We're going to do an overview of land. We're going to tell you about Illuvium 0, the benefits and perks of land, regions, the different tiers and rarities, what's up with multiple lands if you want to purchase multiple, mega cities, something I'm super interested in, renting land out to other people, fuel pricing, and the land sale with tier 1 through 5 land, and of course, how to buy land. Holy moly, that's a packed agenda, but you know what? I think we can do it.
I hope we can do it. I'm so tired. Let's just get into it.
Let's get into it, baby. Let's go. So, first of all, if you want to be reading every word and every detail, further detail than what we're talking about today, no problem. Feel free to go to illuvium.medium.com. And we have the in-depth article that goes much further. Do your own research, and you can even click play on an audio version on this article. So we're delivering this to you in every format possible. Educational resource. And I'm going to be showing the IlluviDex today. This will be only the second time ever we've shown it publicly. This is a pre-launch build. There probably is bugs and glitches, and the prices and numbers on there right now are inaccurate. We're just showing you the IlluviDex so you can get a better feel of how you're going to navigate and find land and use this interface in the actual land sale. And of course, Kieran and I are not financial advisors. This is not financial advice. You need to do your own research. This video is part of that research, of course. Let's just hit it with the explainer video that sets up the basic stage here on what land is, how it relates to the Illuvium economy, and then we'll be right back to go over all of the details. Illuvium is a collectible game and auto battler rolled into one. Explore our vast open world, hunt and capture illuvials, and take them into battles as you strategically build your teams to best your opponents. Illuvium is rich in resource sites that can be used to extract fuel. Fuel plays a critical role in your journey to catch and upgrade your illuvials in the main game. Fuel can be harvested on land. Land is available for purchase with ETH or SILV2. Landowners scan their land in search of illuvials that pass through to make blueprints for new skins. Illuvium 0 is our mobile and desktop companion game, where landowners develop and manage purchased land. In Illuvium 0, build your own virtual industrial complex that can extract fuel stored as an ERC20 token in your connected wallet. Fuel is required to play the main game and can be used to accelerate your gameplay, or sold on the official Illuvium market exchange, the IlluviDex, for revenue. Illuvium Land is finite and organized into 5 tiers. Each tier represents a new level of rarity. The higher the tier, the more fuel that land can generate. Land will be sold within a Dutch auction sale on the IlluviDex, and you'll need either ETH or SILV2 tokens in your wallet to purchase. In a Dutch auction, the price of land will be determined by a starting price for each tier. The price will decrease over time until purchased. To stay up to date with future Illuvium land sales, register on illuvium.io and join our Discord server. Man, I am way too serious in that voiceover, that's for sure. So in a nutshell, Kieran, what is Illuvium Land?
So Illuvium Land is the centerpiece of the Illuvium economy. It generates all of the fuel and elements that power the main game. And we've literally made a mobile game for you to play, earn, and manage your land. Illuvium Zero is our companion game to Illuvium, the main game. And essentially, what you're trying to do in Illuvium Zero is maximize the amount of output and extraction of elements and fuel that you can out of the land. And that's really important because fuel is what is used for pretty much every in-game transaction in Illuvium. For example, traveling to new regions, crafting weapons, crafting armor, curing shards, all of that requires fuel. And the only way to get fuel is by owning a plot of land in Illuvium Zero.
That makes sense. And just to give people an idea of that sort of gameplay in Illuvium Zero, the mobile and companion game that you'll be able to play your land NFT on, you're going to be building, upgrading, extracting, producing, scanning, and trading in this game. So think like a town builder game that you can put your land NFT into your phone, and you're going to be trying to basically improve efficiency and extracting valuable resources on your land through this game. And what's really cool about it is some of those resources, such as fuel or the blueprint NFTs that you get from the Illuvium Zero game, could actually be sold on our IlluviDex for real revenue, which is really, really interesting. And I love the fact that we have real utility with our land because of this Illuvium Zero companion game. You'd mentioned a moment ago some of the benefits and perks of Illuvium Land. And this graphic kind of gives people an idea of how Illuvium Land and the fuel and even the game we're talking about, Illuvium Zero, fit into the overall economy of Illuvium. And I think it's really important to highlight this because this is one of the most innovative parts about Illuvium is this tokenomic system and how land fits in. But can you just give us a run through on this infographic on how all of this works and where land fits in to the Illuvium economy?
Absolutely. So first thing is participating in the sale on June 2nd. That's where you can purchase your land NFT. Once you purchase the NFT, that's when you can jump into the Illuvium Zero game. It's going to be starting roughly 3-4 weeks after the land sale. On that land, as you just mentioned, you want to go through and start creating different structures. It's all based around creating the most efficient, the most efficient gameplay that you can. You need about 20 to 30 minutes a day to optimize the most amount of output you can out of your land. Now, essentially, depending on what type of land plot that you get and the element sites and the fuel sites that are on your land, you'll start to work to extract those elements and the fuel. The elements are required to basically continue building up different structures. Fuel sites are there for you to extract the kryptons, solons, and hyperions. Why they are so important is those three fuels are what powers the economy in Illuvium. Any sort of actions like traveling or curing of shards or crafting requires that fuel. And again, this is not a situation where someone can purchase it from a random pool or whatever. It is only generated through owning Illuvium land. And so that's why it's so important. We're approximating around about 5% of all in-game revenues will come, will stream back to landholders, which again, we're expected to have 5-10 million players. That's the demand on the other side for this fuel will be quite considerable if we can achieve those numbers. And yeah, being a landholder gives you that agency to go, okay, when do I want to sell the fuel into the pool? you have a choice of when you actually want to do that. And depending on when you do, might mean generating more revenue or more profit from that fuel, or less profit from that fuel, depending on the demand in the main game at the time. So it's a little bit fun. It makes it this real world economy. The land owners have agency over, how often they want to sell that fuel in, which makes it really exciting and dynamic in terms of the in-game pricing for Illuvium. And yeah, that's basically how the system works. In terms of the rails that we put this on to make sure that there isn't too much fluctuation in the in-game pricing, we've made it so that the maximum that it could fluctuate, let's call it let's say a travel to a region is $10. The maximum it could fluctuate is 25% either way. And we do that because we don't want a situation where landowners are literally withholding selling fuel into the pool to a point where it's costing you, say, like $900 or $1,000 to travel just purely because there's no resources. That would be a little bit crazy. So we've limited it to a maximum of $12.50 or $7.50 either way.
That makes sense. So what's interesting about Illuvium Land is it's like an NFT that produces more NFTs. I know it's such crypto industry jargon, but it's true. The land itself is going to generate these, fuel NFTs, and it's also these blueprint NFTs. And so that's sort of the revenue generating portion of land. And then that fuel can earn you revenue essentially if you choose to sell it on the IlluviDex. But there are, and we're going to talk more about this later, there are going to be price controls into place that make sure that fuel doesn't get crazy expensive, and because players need it. And if it's too expensive, then it'll break the entire economy. So that's already been taken into consideration here with how this is designed, which is really, really interesting. I wanted to quickly touch on the scanning for blueprints part, because that's something that you can scan for blueprints on tier 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 land. Can you give people an overview of what these blueprints actually are and what their value is? Obviously, you have a singularity scanner on your land. You're playing this in Illuvium 0. The scanner picks up biodata from alluvials that are actually passing through your land. Let's say you do get one of these rare blueprint NFTs. Why is that valuable and why is that interesting?
So blueprints are important because they're super rare. Now, what you can do with that blueprint is you can mint armor. So for example, if the alluvial that you pick up is a ramfire, right? It's gone past your land, the scanner's picked it up. You then research the biodata, you create that blueprint. That's going to be a ramfire-based armor blueprint, right? So you will be the only person in the world that can create that piece of armor. Now, the cool thing about that is you get to set the price. It's whatever you want, right? You don't have to sell it to someone. You might be the only person who wants that, right? And so you go, I'm not going to give this to anyone else, so I can have that exclusivity. It's a cosmetic skin that you're bringing into the game. So it doesn't have any effect in terms of balancing, but it's a flex. It's like your Fortnite skins, except instead of the publisher, as in Fortnite, creating that skin and determining how many they create and all of that, it's literally down to the person who owns that blueprint, the owner of that land NFT, right? They decide what's the pricing. They decide how much supply am I going to create, if I'm going to create any at all. And then you also have the ability to say, okay, I've had this blueprint. I've been creating this specific armor for a while now. I've sold a few, and now actually I think it's time for me to let it go. And there'll be someone else out there, maybe someone who creates like blueprint factories, right? Who's literally out there to try and get as many blueprints as possible because that's their business model, and they would be happy to purchase your blueprint. So you might then offload your blueprint and you'd be able to fetch a very, very high price for it, because now you're not just selling the piece of armor that you minted from having the blueprint, you're literally giving them the thing that can create an unlimited amount of this piece of armor.
So that's what we're talking about. This is the NFT that helps you make more NFTs. So it gives you a blueprint so you can control the market, if you will, for skins. That's wild. It's almost like you're saying, you're the developer and publisher almost in this case, where like you decide whether the market gets any of these skins. You could say zero or ever made.
You could say zero. Yeah, you could.
Or you could just mint them and then sell them yourself. So it's like you're almost like able to set up shop here, like an Illuvium skins shop. That's so cool. I just wanted to emphasize that point. So it's not just playing Illuvium Zero on land, getting fuel, and maybe selling it on the IlluviDex for cash. These blueprints allow you to offer products essentially to the market if you choose these skins products, and they're ultra rare. So cool. I love that aspect of land. And that's tier 1 through 5, guys. So even if you're getting tier 1 land, you have the potential to get these ultra rare blueprint NFTs.
Of course, you can build a singularity scanner on tier 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but there's no advantage. There's no benefit. There's no additional production that you can get from your scanner on a tier 5 plot versus a tier 1 plot. And that's really, really important for the smaller guys out there who can't afford a tier 2, 3, 4, and 5 plot. If you want to get into that game of creating blueprints and eventually a blueprint skin factory, as you're saying, then you can do it by purchasing the tier 1 land, which I think is really good. And it includes a lot more people.
That's great. So that means that whales aren't the only ones that can participate in this sort of element of the economy. That folks that can really throw down for tier 4 and tier 5 land, folks that are just grabbing one little piece of tier 1 land, they can participate potentially in this. And maybe they could get lucky and get one of these rare blueprint NFTs. And maybe that could pay long-term dividends for them if they decide to work that. Or they could say, you know what? I don't want to bother with these blueprint NFTs. I'll just sell the blueprint, right? And then they can just give that business model to someone else. I love the fact that players have that autonomy as opposed to just legacy gaming where whatever skins show up in the shop, you pay up, you don't own anything. And if you decide to uninstall, you're screwed. Like it's totally different. It's just mind blowing when you realize you become sort of the publisher almost of content in this case, where you're pocketing the financial benefit of these in-game skins. It's wildly interesting. I love that. All of these land plots obviously take place, and you're going to get a real piece of different regions in Illuvium. And those regions are vastly different from each other. And it'll actually affect the look of your land when you're playing the Illuvium Zero game. And so, as you can see on the screen right here, this is the way that like the ground will sort of look, if you will, if you decide to purchase land in, let's say, Crimson Waste up here. Crimson Waste is a desert region. For the most part, it has other areas. And so when you play your land, if you buy land in Crimson Waste, it'll actually be in the Illuvium Zero game in Crimson Waste. And so you'll actually see that deserty terrain, and you'll be able to literally physically see the difference of the way your land looks in Crimson Waste versus, let's say, you take it to the Halcyon Sea, and it's going to have a completely different look in that space. So you're not just getting some generic land NFT that doesn't actually have some sort of like spatial meaning. It'll actually be in these regions, and you will see it on the freaking screen. Now, obviously, our regions will be more fully experienced through our overworld gameplay when you can actually go out there, jump around as the ranger, and fully explore the overworld. But I wanted to highlight this because this is connecting that sort of sense of place and that sense of region to both the Illuvium Zero mobile and companion game and the overworld experience as well.
Yeah, so the other cool thing is if you have a favorite alluvial, for example, the singularity scanner is obviously picking up whichever alluvials come past your land. And so there are some alluvials that are more commonly found in regions. So for example, Ramfire, you're going to find it more in the Crimson Waste. Same thing with Furiox is going to be in Crimson Waste. But then in the Halcyon Sea, you might find squiz there because it's more a water-based alluvial. And so that's important because when you're scanning and you're trying to find these blueprints, you got to remember that you're picking up that biodata. So when you create that blueprint, it's specific to that alluvial. So like the Ramfire, as we know, he's red, he's orange, he's fiery, he's like all that crazy fire stuff. That's what you're going to see in your skin. So if you're trying to pick up a blueprint of squiz because you think it's going to be the most popular, then you might decide, hey, I'm going to purchase my land in the Halcyon Sea, for example.
That's great. So not only as these visualizations are showing us right here, will your land look different, but the potential of you getting these blueprint NFTs and getting certain alluvials will vary from region to region as well, adding even more uniqueness to selecting a specific region and then choosing that region for whatever land that you're purchasing, which makes sense. And personally, I don't want to miss out. So my personal strategy is to buy one tier one in every region because I want to have, like personally, I'm a collector. Like from an investment standpoint, I don't even care. I just want to have one in each region because I also don't want to miss out on being able to scan and potentially find blueprint NFTs for all of these alluvials like you're describing. Having land in multiple regions can make sense for the reason that you just stated. And speaking of which, you'll be able to check out the different regions in the IlluviDex and be able to actually navigate those. And let's just quickly show everybody what we mean by that. This gives you an even better idea of kind of the sense of place, if you will, that all this land has. And you'll be able to kind of shop for land based on region. By the way, I'm going to show you in a moment, we have an entire live stream that we did, deep dive with our concept art team, going into the lore and some of the really cool aspects of these regions. And also, Kieran, I know you put together some articles going into these regions as well, if you want to learn more deeply about each of them, not just how they look and where they're at on the map. So this is the IlluviDex. The numbers you see here are inaccurate. I'm just showing you this for navigation purposes. But here at the top, just pick a region, Kieran, and let's dive in and show everyone how they can take a look around in the IlluviDex. What do you want to look at right now?
Let's go to the Crystal Shores.
Awesome. So I'm just doing this drop-down menu, clicking on Crystal Shores, and it's going to zoom me straight into Crystal Shores. And here I'll be able to see on the map all of the different plots of land that are available. And of course, it's going to be in a list format as well. And you can choose to dive into each of them being color-coded. So let's say I was interested in this particular land. I would click it. It loads up this land plot and its information, and it has this specific location. It tells you what the tier of that land is, what its landmark is, the element sites, fuel sites, pricing, and the whole nine. And as you're looking through the IlluviDex and kind of shopping for land, if you will, you can favorite some of them and kind of keep them in your shopping list, if you will, if you're planning, if you kind of have your eye on certain land in these regions. And we also have sorting features too for people that want to look at time ascending and descending, because this is a Dutch auction. We'll talk more about that later. And also lowest price and highest price, as well as other filtering options of what's coming soon, expired, various tiers of land, etc. So you don't have to randomly just look at squares here in these regions to try to figure out what you're going to get and what you want. You've got tons of filtering options so you can find precisely what you're looking for. And what's cool is if you zoom out here, just on Crystal Shore sample, you will see where that land is relative to all 7 regions of Illuvium, which is great. And then you can just kind of zoom into any region that you'd like and go find land literally exactly where it's at here on the grid, which is really, really cool.
These are in batches. And so you still will have the ability, even if it's not on sale yet, you can still go and search, favorite it, get your strategy set in stone. So you're like, okay, these are the 5 plots that I'm going to go after. You might add maybe another 10 as backups if they get taken or they're purchased at a higher price than you felt comfortable with. But this interface is designed to make people be able to build their strategy. Obviously, we're going to touch on megacities later, which means you need to purchase the land adjacent to each other in 2x2 and 3x3 plots. And so we didn't want this situation where it was just like a massive frenzy of just clicking on the same tile, and everyone's rushing to pick it up. It's like, take your time, choose the land that you want, and this sort of a UX and UI just makes it. I personally have never seen any NFT sale, whether it be land or PFPs or whatever, that has gone to this amount of detail. So like the Florian and Steven from the UX and UI team, they've done an impeccable job here.
Perfect. And just to give you guys a little bit of extra color on the regions, if you're somebody who enjoys lore and you want to understand what the sense of space is and what have you, we did an entire Regions Explored stream that you can take a look at with Roger, our lead concept artist. And in the stream, we literally go through each of the regions in deep detail. If you want to get more of the idea of the sense and the feel and where all of this land is relative to each other. And as you can see, this concept art is out of this world looking, and the regions are it's just bananas. And so if you're at all interested in understanding the sense of place for each of the pieces of land you're considering purchasing, watch this piece of content. And it is the number one authoritative piece of content to help you get an idea of what that sense of place truly is. This leads us to, and you just saw in the IlluviDex, there were many different tiers of land. Each of these little squares, you could click in there. You saw tier 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What do those tiers mean even? We'll just take a look up close in this video. Tiers 1 through 5 land, they not only look different and look cool in a video, but they have different attributes that we're going to talk about right now.
Tier 1 land, obviously our cheapest land that's out there. It's got a starting price of 2 ETH, and obviously we'll touch on that later, but that rapidly goes down. In terms of what's on that land site, you know that it's going to come with 3 element sites for you to extract from and 1 fuel site. So what you don't know is the types of sites that you'll get. And we like that because we think adding that little bit of randomness makes it a little bit more exciting. If you get, because obviously a tier 1 only has a single fuel site, if for whatever reason the fuel that you're able to generate isn't the most sought after in the main game, then you do have the ability to build a structure that actually allows you to convert your fuel. So you don't need to worry like, oh, I missed out and I got the bad fuel site, even though there is no bad fuel site. There is that opportunity as well. In terms
There's the
of
opportunity
landmarks,
to convert. Right. Got it.
Yeah. In terms of landmarks, there's none on the tier 1s, and you don't get any production boost on a tier 1. Tier
Got
2,
it. But you do, though, just to clarify, with tier 1 land, you get the same opportunity as anybody else to scan for those blueprint NFTs. And that's something that I want to highlight for everybody here about tier 1 land. So if you're looking at it, you're like, no production boost, none of these cool landmarks. What? The blueprint NFTs are still able to be scanned here, and you can choose which region you're going to buy tier 1 land in to potentially obviously have different chances to scan for different blueprint NFTs. So just want to clarify that major benefit is locked and loaded here. So tier 2 is different though. So what makes tier 2 land, let's say, better?
Yeah, so on a tier 2, you've got 6 element sites and you've got 3 fuel sites. So quite a bump in the number of sites that you can actually extract value from. Also, no landmark, but a tier 2 has a 33.3% production boost. So you're getting a little bit more out of each of the element sites and each of the fuel sites that you have on your land.
Let's say you get a baseline production boost here on tier 2 land, but as you move up to tier 3 land, you're going to get a significant production boost and a unique landmark. Tell us about tier 3.
Yeah, so tier 3, you're looking at 9 element sites, and 6 fuel sites, which again, significant upgrade there. It does come with an element landmark, and you get 100% production boost. So we're talking a very, very, very massive increase here.
And these landmarks are right here in these graphics in the center here. So this crater looking thing is the landmark we're talking about. Again, production boost 100%, obviously. And element landmark is going to specifically boost element aspect of your production. Whereas as we move to tier 4 land, now you're looking at a different landmark in the center, as you guys saw from the video, a fuel landmark. So tell us about tier 4 land.
Yeah, so this is one of the big puppies. You've got 12 element sites on this and 9 fuel sites. You've got, as you just mentioned, it comes with 1 fuel landmark, and the production boost is 300% for that.
That's bananas. That's an insane production. That's literally video game numbers production boost here. So for those of you that are looking for the tier of land that's going to max out fuel output, tier 4 land is obviously designed to be that, with the fuel landmark right here in the center of the land. A pretty massive piece of land. But it's nothing in comparison to tier 5 land, which is the most unique and the most rare of all land. Tell us about it.
Alrighty, so you've got 15 element sites on this. So as you can see, that plot is completely stacked. You've got 12 individual fuel sites on the tier 5. Now, the landmark that you're seeing in the middle of that is an arena. And they are very, very special because that's where we're going to host all of Illuvium's official esports tournaments. As you know, we've spoken about it a lot. We're planning on putting down some very, very large prize pools that are designed to get mainstream gamers that are playing, games like Dota and Teamfight Tactics right now, get them across into our game. And the super cool thing is you as a landowner get to literally host those tournaments. With that, you have the ability to on-sell a whole bunch of marketing with that, like naming rights, sponsorship, and all of the different things that come with running an event like that, including advertising revenue. All of it goes back to the landowner, and you can do one of two things there. You can I've had conversations with people who are looking to buy tier 5 land for themselves, as in it might be a guild that's looking for that extra boost in the space, the exposure of having that many people looking at their brand. And then I've spoken to other people that VCs out there that are more interested in just owning it and keeping it as an asset for 15, 20 years. They don't want to deal with having to put on events, have to deal with sponsorships and advertisements and stuff. And their plan is to literally on-sell the hosting of those tournaments and the naming rights. And so they will find a partner once a year. Maybe they find an exchange, maybe they find a guild, and they just sell the yearly rights to the stadium. And over time, their plan is to recuperate what their upfront cost is. Plus, then you always have the ability to sell that land as well.
That makes sense. So just to summarize with all of these landmarks, and we're going to go a little deeper on tier 5 land later on, but just to summarize, tier 1 and tier 2 land have no landmarks. Tier 3 land has the element landmark. Tier 4 land has the fuel landmark. And then tier 5 land has the arena landmark. So that's what's unique about these land. That's like the big unique feature of each of these tiers of land, outside of the number of element sites and the number of fuel sites steadily increasing as you move up in the tiers of land. But wait, there's more. So here's something that blew me away. But you can have multiple lands and you can own and play them. So tell us a little bit about this. So a lot of people will think, well, maybe I just have to choose one. Well, you don't have to just choose one, right?
Yeah, so the cool thing is that you're able to buy multiple plots of land and you can control that on a single device. So let's say you want to buy land in, like yourself, in all 7 different regions. You can do that. You can still play each one of those plots and manage them. Each plot takes about 20 to 30 minutes to manage. So 7 is going to get up there. I would be a little bit concerned with your work output at that point.
Well, my wife loves town builder games, so my plan is to put all my NFTs on my Illuvium Zero and then just give it to her, and then she can work all the land for me. She likes it.
There we go. So yeah, she can do all of that on a single device, and yeah.
Got it. So that's multiple lands. So people could buy as many as they want, essentially, and then play what they would like, or play none of them. It's up to them what they want to do with the land, right? We can't make anybody play a video game, which you should want to. But there's a separate concept, which is mind-boggling, called mega cities. Now, I know we're early on this, and we're only communicating a little bit about mega cities right now. But what is the concept of mega cities?
So mega cities came from the idea of us wanting to give people more, right? Like if you go out and you purchase a whole bunch of plots, yes, you can individually manage them, and yes, that's fun. But we think it takes it to a whole nother level in terms of the way that the open market works, and also the way that you can actually produce on your land. And we think if you have multiple plots that are close to each other, that you should be able to connect them. That makes sense, right? And so the first expansion allows you to connect up a 2x2 plot and a 3x3 plot. This may be increased later, but essentially, if you have those 4 plots of land adjacent to each other, you can connect them and convert it into a mega city. Why that is so important is for 2 reasons. The first is the actual output that you can get out of that land. We just spoke about landmarks. When you are combining 4 pieces of land, let's say you've got 3 tier 1s and 1 tier 4. That tier 4 is going to have the fuel landmark on it. Now, your other tier 3s don't have any landmark. But once you connect them up as a megacity, they gain access to that landmark. So all of a sudden, you've got a massive fuel production boost. And yes, you've only got a single fuel site on each of the tier 1s. But with a 300% production boost, all of a sudden, it's like you have 3 fuel sites on those singular plots. So that obviously makes it very advantageous for people who have multiple plots to start creating these megacities. Why that's a cool benefit to the entire ecosystem is, yes, that person gets a massive amount of output out of that, but there might be a little guy who's only a single plot holder that is holding one of those 4 plots that you need. So you might have the tier 4 plot and you've got 2 of the other adjacent tier 1 plots, but there's a single plot there where just one guy out there or girl owns, and she's just happy just working her land, creating that, that production's fine for her. And then all of a sudden you get this big mogul guy who comes along, this big whale, and he says, well, I want to create this megacity. I want to go and I want the most output I can get out of my fuel sites. Sell me your piece of land. And then that person's like, well, I know that they're wanting it for their megacity, so I'm going to put a ridiculously large premium on you being able to purchase my land. So it brings a huge amount of value to the little guys out there who,
I see.
and it was actually my idea. And the reason is I just kind of like a little bit of anarchy, right? As you can tell.
Well, this is just like real life, right? Like when a major land developer comes in, or a developer comes into like a downtown area in a real life city, there's that local business that's there, or there's that guy that bought that land 40 years ago that's sitting on it. And they could, if they wanted to, fetch a premium price for their little shop in the middle of downtown because the guy wants to make the land developer wants to make a megaplex there. This is reflecting real life real estate economy concepts. Mm-hmm. I really, really like this. And so this can reward people even more so for purchasing plots in various areas. So I like this for my personal strategy, but also it allows people to become more organized and to think about having adjacent plots of land next to each other in the land sale itself. Really quick, we should say the megacities feature needs to be fully built out, and it is kind of like subject to change, right? In terms of the different features here. So we need to qualify all of this with that. But that means that people today, especially the ones that are looking to make a megacity, should want to be considering purchasing multiple adjacent lands, maybe in the first 100%. Land sale potentially, and thinking about putting together that monopoly, if you will, right now, and getting it all close together. That's really, really interesting.
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you can make a megacity, again, it depends what someone charges you for that plot of land, but you're almost definitely going to make it up. And to be honest, the person who is sitting there on the tier 1, they've got a choice to make too. Like, yes, you might be attached to your land and whatever else like that. But if you can clearly see that, hey, this is going to increase production for this other person and it's going to make them an extra 4 or 5 times what they were making in their land, well, I'm going to tap into that. I'm going to cash in off that. And yeah, I'm not going to go crazy to the point where the person goes, well, I'm just not going to be able to recuperate how much I'm spending. But you should be able to come to an agreement with this landowner of the single tier plot that you want to get, where it's advantageous to both of you. So it doesn't need to be a bad situation like that. Those typical developers that come in and try and kick people out of their homes and stuff. It should be a negotiation where it's like, okay, let's work out, what's it worth to you? Sweet. That means that I'm getting 4 or 5 times what I paid for it as a little guy. That's amazing for me. And yeah, sure, you can go off and now start, guzzling down your fuel because you have a megacity, but that's fine for me.
What's also inspired by real life real estate is the concept of land rental. And so tell us about this. I know we're kind of very early on talking about details around land rental, but what is this, and who would be truly interested in a land rental concept, and who is this for?
Yeah, so again, this is more for the larger land plot holders. It's for people that are time poor. They've got a lot of money to invest. They realize that gaining access to 5% of the in-game revenues in Illuvium is a very, very big thing. And it's an awesome investment, right, for someone. However, when you tell them, okay, sweet, you've convinced me, I'm going to drop $1 million on land. I think I'm going to be able to recuperate it. But that's going to cost you, 50 hours a day of actually maintaining these land plots. that's when it starts going, okay, well, how? I don't have time to do that. And so in comes this rental platform, which allows anyone to go on and say, you can lease out my land plot, you can accumulate all the fuel that you want. When they sell that, you've organized a profit split that can be customizable. It's whatever you want. It's again a negotiation between yourself and the person who's renting out your land. But the idea is, let's say the owner keeps 70% and the person who's leasing it keeps 30, or maybe it's 50-50. But either way, you've got one person who's making a passive income who doesn't need to do anything to manage this land. And then you've got the people who are happy, who don't have the necessarily the capital up front to go and spend, 1-2 ETH on a land plot. They get access to it. They can slowly accumulate some revenue through selling fuel over time. And yes, they don't make as much as someone would if they owned it themselves, but maybe they build themselves up. They're still earning 50% or 30%.
Well, just like an Airbnb or just like a Verbo or just like, buying an income property, if you aren't living in it yourself, if you aren't using it yourself directly, and maybe you're using a management company or you're using a third-party platform to get more, to get some sort of income or yield out of it, you lose some profit or you lose some of the yield in the process, but you don't have to bother with it anymore, if you will. And somebody else is going to take care of that for you, but for a fee, if you will. So
Correct,
it's a similar concept. It's kind of like Airbnb for metaverse land almost. Is that fair to say?
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like that. Yeah. I love this concept. We're going to be releasing more details on this in the future. Things like mega cities and land rental are subject, the features are subject to change. And of course, our council needs to approve the details of these items. But I love that concept for people that are, like you're mentioning, that are time poor. Some people just want to invest in this land as like just an investment. And maybe it's some big shot executive somewhere, right? Are they really going to spend 30 to 45 minutes per day, like pulling fuel off of their tier 4 land, or like, hold on a second, to their executive assistant? Come on. So I love this concept because it allows for all sorts of people that want to play the Illuvium Zero mobile game and people that just want to purely make an investment. You choose, right? It just gives choice to everybody on how they want to participate.
Yeah. And it's not a small thing. Like the fact of the matter is that right now, players play and earn games. They're mainly either scholars right now, or whatever word you want to use for people that are utilizing other people's assets, or they're investors, right? We don't have that pure gamers in here in the Web3 space yet. And so, this rental program is specifically tailored to the exact audience that we have in our space right now. So it's absolutely critical. And yes, do I think we'll get players in the future that love city builder games that actually would like to sit there for 10 hours a day managing 20 different plots? Yes, I do. But for now, we need to cater to our audience. And as I said, that's big time investors and other people who can't necessarily afford to buy a plot up front. So this gives them the ability to play and earn without putting any upfront capital, which is pretty crazy.
I love it. It just gives folks in the market more choices on how they want to participate with land or not. I love that. Now, earlier on, you talked about fuel pricing and fuel controls and that sort of thing as it relates to land. And I want to go a little bit more into this so everybody can understand, because obviously fuel price it impacts the main Illuvium overworld and arena game economy. And so the system that you've come up with is a fuel price control system where the fuel can go plus or minus 25% of the intended price. So can you help me understand how this is going to impact landowners? And is this something that they're going to have to constantly be looking at their phone on Discord to understand what the price is and understand what's going on here? Or is this something more automatic can you just give everybody kind of an understanding of how fuel price controls will kind of play out and what the intention is behind this?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was actually Aaron who came up with this system, and it's really, really cool because it gives agency to the landowners. It gives them a little bit more of a dynamic experience where it's not just so monotonous and you're just looking and it's kind of like, okay, I sell fuel and it's the same price all the time, no matter what, right? Like we wanted some variability there. We wanted some excitement. And so the way that it works is depending on the demand on the other side, in terms of like, let's pull out travel, for example. If we have a massive rush of players that come into the main game and they start traveling heaps. And so there's a demand for that specific fuel type. What's going to happen is you're going to see that price go up. And as the landowners who are extracting that fuel type see that, they're going to go, okay, well, I'm getting a high premium for my fuel right now, so it's a good time to sell. So I'm going to go in and dump all of my fuel now because it's at the highest price. Now, what happens with that is because you've just dumped a whole bunch of that specific fuel type into this balancer pool, which holds all three of the fuel types, that specific function will make the travel in the main game cheaper now because there's all of a sudden an abundance of fuel. Then you might find that players in the main game are like, oh my God, fuel's super cheap now. So you see them start like hammering tons and tons of travels in a day. And all of a sudden, if the average person was traveling 10 times a day because it's gone down in price, they're going to go, hey, I'm taking advantage of that now. Maybe they start traveling 12 times a day. But that's going to mean that people are going to need more shards when they go into the main game. Shards require a different type of fuel. That's going to increase the demand for that type of fuel, which makes the landowners go, okay, now that's got a super high premium, so I'm going to sell that fuel type in. And where it gets interesting for the landowners is they need to figure out how do I get the largest premium from my fuel? And it might even be the case that they need to convert their fuel, right? If for whatever reason, no one's crafting anything in the main game or there's a lull in crafting for whatever reason, right? Like maybe after 6 months, people are like, hey, I've got enough weapons or whatever. Like, who knows? But if that is the case, then that fuel type is going to be less in demand than the fuel that is required for traveling and curing shards. So then if you're sitting there and you're like, well, my fuel site only produces that type of fuel, that's Solons, for example, but you need Hyperions because that's what is required for curing shards, you're going to then, on your land, actually convert the fuel. There's about a 5-10% loss in converting it, but it's your job to go, well, I'm getting half the price for my Solons. Hyperions are double that, right? Like I'm going to take the 5-10% loss from converting that fuel type and sacrifice it. And then I'm going to sell Hyperions into the pool, which will give me that more premium price.
Awesome. So it allows for a dynamic economy where people can choose to pay attention to fuel prices or not. But if you do, and you pay attention to what's going on in the economy and with pricing, then you can benefit more, and it allows for further optimization of how you use your land. So it basically gives depth to the strategy behind how you play Illuvium Zero, how you manage your multiple pieces of land, and how you decide to kind of min-max land. And so this kind of gives all you spreadsheet warriors and all the folks out there that are going to make these like in-depth guides. You know who I'm talking to right now. You know who you are. You guys have the opportunity with this sort of pricing and this sort of dynamic economy to figure out this week or today, this is the best way to utilize land or to sell into land. And it allows for mini bull and bear markets within
Mm-hmm.
Illuvium's own microeconomy here. And that to me is fascinating. I love, and we're seeing this theme with how ours, as we're talking this through, with owning multiple pieces of land, like mega cities, rentals, fuel pricing. This very much reflects the way that real life economies work and how dynamic and interesting that can be. If you're interested in that and you want to go that deep, Illuvium Land provides that opportunity. Or you could just completely ignore it, buy the NFT and just sit on it and revisit it in 5 years. You choose. I love the choice that people get when it comes to Illuvium Land.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like when I came to Aaron and I said, "Hey, we need to sell land," he was like, "God, I hate you. Like, seriously, like, we don't need to sell land." And I was like, "Look, the problem is everyone's doing it." Like, this is like back 12, 18 months ago now. And he's like, "Man, like, we are doing a AAA game. Like, we've gone down that path now. Like, we don't need to do land." And I was like, "Look, please, like, can we do it?" And as you know, like, you've seen that guy work. He's crazy. Him and Johnny came up with this entire system. Like, the fuel system is so complex, so in depth. The way that we're utilizing a multi-token pool like this, it's just like, and he comes back after like 2 days and he's like, "Yeah, like, what do you think?" And I'm like, "What do you think I think? Like, now we're talking, like, this is amazing. Like, this gives, so much power to landholders." And obviously, if we do a really, really good job, like, the ability for those prices to fluctuate sits on the landholders, right? Now, we've put it on rails so that it can't deviate more than 25% either way, as I was saying. But I don't even think it's going to go anywhere close to that. Because if you think about it, if we have the demand in the main game of players wanting these different fuels, it creates an arbitrage opportunity that will be attacked by people that don't care about the game. They don't care about Illuvium Zero. They don't care about Illuvium. But they just see, okay, if I buy fuel here and I wait until the appreciation of people in the main game are wanting to go and travel or buy shards, all I need to do is just hold on to these different types of fuels and sell them. If at one point one goes down, I can convert them across. And I think that it's probably going to get to a stage where you see a min max of like 2% either way. And, like, you start getting into a stage where it's like you got to consider fees and stuff like that. But then it's on Immutable X, right? So there's no fees for you to go in and start converting back and forth. So, like, the arbitrage play there is going to be open season for everyone. Of course, we don't know that. And so, given that it's such an important factor now that we've literally embedded this through the entire economy, we do need to make sure that fuel can't fluctuate more than 25%. But again, I seriously doubt it's going to go anywhere past like 2% either way.
Yeah, so it opens up possibilities for arbitrageurs and swing traders in a more proper economy, which I love free economies. And I'm sure a lot of people out there that are in the DeFi space love free economy concepts. Most importantly, with more economic activity, more economic actors that are a part of the fuel economy and the land economy here, the better the price discovery is. And the quicker you get to the truth on what fuel is truly worth on a daily, hourly basis. And I love that about having the potential for high activity and highly motivated actors within the land and Illuvium economy. We need to talk about the land sale though, because this thing is happening soon. June 2nd through June 5th. I'm not even going to pretend to be able to translate to all of you guys what that is in UTC. Look it up. But there's the dates and times. This is when this thing is starting and ending. And let's go over the details of the sale itself, because there are some intricacies here that people need to be aware of. The timing we just mentioned a moment ago. The total duration is 3 days, and land is going to be sold in batches. So can you help us understand what's going to happen there? There's batches. These batches are releasing on an hourly basis. Tell us about that. Help people understand how the land is going to be rolled out in terms of auction.
The total duration is 3 days. As you just said, We're starting on June 2nd, 1 p.m. UTC. I think that converts to like 6 a.m. for PST and like maybe 9 a.m. for Eastern if you're in America. In terms of the amount of plots per batch, so there's 282 plots. Now, this is a batch of all different types of tiers, except for the tier 5s. They start at the beginning of the sale and they go all the way through for the whole 3 days. So the important thing there is you don't need to worry about being online at a certain time where we're like going through and selling all of the tier 1s at once, all of the tier 2s at once, and then all like it's done in batches that have all different types of tiers at all different times of the day to reduce the amount of FOMO. What we don't want is people going in there in a frenzy. It's literally we're releasing a batch every single hour on the hour for 3 days, right? That encompasses all of them. So there's no need to go, okay, I'm going to stay up with like 85 energy drinks for the entire 3 days so I can snipe. I mean, you can do that if you're really, really looking to get specific land plots and like you're waiting and you know when they're about to be released and stuff like that. But the idea is for like the general person that just wants to pick up a plot or two, that's it, nothing crazy. You don't need to worry about being there at a set time or anything like that. You can relax, just choose which plot you want, and yeah, it's made really, really easy. Like we truly have designed this in a way to reduce FOMO. Like as crazy as that sounds, as one of the co-founders of this and a person who's trying to get as much value as possible, we genuinely don't want people to FOMO in, and that's why the sale is set up like that.
Makes sense, and it's a Dutch auction, and so the duration of each batch, if you will, here, and we'll talk about the Dutch auction in a moment, is 2 hours. So every hour, a new batch is released, and then that batch will last for 2 hours, and then it will be sold at some point during that period of time. And so there's new batches constantly rolling out and rolling out and rolling out and rolling out over the course of the 3 days. Just wanted to illustrate that point. And what's rolling out? This is what's rolling out. There's a total of 100,000 plots of land total, but in this sale, only 20,000 will be made available in this first sale. Let's not go over every single tier here, but as you can see, there's more of the tier 1s here, and there's only 2 of the tier 5s at the top. So obviously there's an increasing rarity of land as you go up the tiers, which of course is why the price is reflective, a higher starting price for each tier. Rarity plays into that, in addition to those extra yield and production elements that we talked about before. But here's something that I really wanted to highlight are these Dutch auction starting prices that are right over here. So you mentioned don't FOMO in earlier, not financial advice. But what we're trying to say is we've designed this so you are discouraged from FOMOing in. So let's just dial in on these Dutch auction starting prices here. Did the council purposefully choose higher prices, if you will, higher prices than what we anticipate market value to be to find true price discovery? What was the decision making behind these prices that we see right here?
Yes, absolutely. So we actually had a situation where we as the team proposed a set of prices and the council stepped in and said, hey, we think that those starting prices are too cheap. We need to increase them. You might be sitting there thinking, that's insane. Why would you do that? And the way that a Dutch auction works is it goes backwards from its starting price, right? So an English auction typically goes upwards. This one goes backwards and or downwards. And in the decay curve that we've set is very, very rapid. So essentially, a tier 1 plot after 30 minutes, and remember they're going to be up for a total of 2 hours. But after 30 minutes, a tier 1 goes down to about 1.1 1 ETH, right? So it nearly halves in price in literally 30 minutes. So
They
you can
decrease
imagine
at a rate of 2.5% per minute.
per minute.
So these prices are just going down, 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 down over time here, guys. That's what you're referring to when you say don't FOMO in. If the price is going down by 2.5% per minute, that means that it's going to be cascading down. And then at some point, the market will say, okay, that's what that tier of land is actually worth. And then that's the actual value, right?
Correct. Yeah. And so that's why, it's kind of weird to go like, and some people who don't understand what a Dutch auction is, they look at that and they think, why is that so expensive, right? Like the starting price is insane. If we don't put the starting price higher than what we deem people or the fair market value, what's going to happen is everyone's going to try and purchase immediately as soon as the sale starts, right? Like let's say we put these plots at 0.3 ETH or whatever in tier ones. Like I think we had it at 0.5 ETH to start off with, and this was when ETH was like 4K. So they were about $2,000 at the time, which is about half the price that they were now. The council stepped in and said, at that price, literally everyone is just going to buy immediately. You might think, what's wrong with that, right? The problem with that is that everyone is trying to buy the same plots of land. And that's how you create this massive gas war that doesn't need to occur, right? Like we don't need to have that FOMO there where everyone's launching into it. What we've done is we've said, okay, let's inflate those prices. Let's position them to be really, really high and rapidly decrease them. That way, everyone has the ability to sit back and go, okay, I've got 2 hours to look at this. And when I feel comfortable based on my own financial situation, I can click buy and know that I'm going to be able to purchase that land.
This was put into place. The Dutch auction was put into place to help people be able to purchase land at its true market value. And what he's referring to, if you've never done a land sale before or bid on NFTs, but high demand NFTs before, the gas war he's talking about is if multiple people are going after the same NFT at the same time, whoever pays the most money in Ethereum gas fees wins. So that gets stupid. You're willing to pay 200, Kieran? I'll pay 300. You're willing to pay 500, I'll pay 1,000. Like people start stepping over each other and just blowing a bunch of money to get something. We are trying to avoid that. We don't want people to be wasting their time and their effort and their hard-earned money on battling each other over blockchain gas fees. Like that's the dumbest thing I could think of. We want people to get land at true market value, period. And so that's why the price is decaying like this. That was our thinking behind this. We want the regular, everyday, average person, if they're interested, to be able to buy land so that whales can't just whale out on gas and just scoop everything up and then basically control the market. We want regular people to be able to own land. Is that fair to say?
100%. Absolutely. And it ties back into our ethos that we are community first, right? We're not, a lot of people have said to us, why don't you just go out and just put those prices? You're going to sell out. You've got nearly 200,000 people that have registered for this land. Like, just do that, like maximize the revenue. And the fact is, we don't want to be sitting here in a week's time going, okay, we just wasted $100 million of people's gas or some ridiculous number. That just doesn't stay true to what Illuvium is. We're always going to try and minimize the amount that the community needs to spend to gain access to our stuff.
That's the tier 1 through 4 style of auction, that Dutch auction style we talked about a moment ago with price decay. However, there are 2 tier 5 lands that will be auctioned in a normal English style auction. And so these tier 5 lands will go up for sale at the beginning of the land sale, and then they'll be closing out at the end of the land sale. So, Kieran, this is like your standard auction, right? You bid a certain amount, I can outbid you. The next guy can outbid him. The next guy can outbid him. And it's just bidding from the ground up with tier 5 land versus tier 1 through 4. It's starting from the top down. So this is basically the complete opposite. Tier 5 land is being auctioned in the complete opposite way, essentially. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, from the community perspective, from the little guy's perspective, maximizing the amount that we sell these land plots for the tier fives is in everyone's best interest. Because as you know, 100% of the revenues from this land sale are going back to the people who are staked in the protocol. That's why we're creating an auction style that will create FOMO, that does have a mechanism where if someone bids with 10 seconds to go, it increases the amount of time on the auction counter, which I probably should have let you know, because that means that this sale, the tier 1s to 4s might end at the 3-day mark, but the tier 5s could be going for a little bit longer. And
oh boy, we had some marketing activities planned around the end of the land sale. So you're saying tier 5 land, people could just keep outbidding each other and outbidding each other and outbidding each other, and it could continue to extend the tier 5 auction.
Yeah, I mean,
for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I highly doubt it's going to be like more than a couple of hours. Like that would be. I've seen some OpenSea auctions like that where they extend by like 45 minutes or an hour, something like that. But yeah, it's just another mechanism to try and create that FOMO, which is really, really weird to say, because nothing we ever do is designed that way. But this is a piece of land that for the DAO, for the community, we want to try and maximize the amount of the sale price.
I don't know, man. I like how straight up you are about it. Like, you're just letting everybody know what you're trying to do with this land. And it does benefit all of the ILV stakers out there. When this land sale is over, the ETH that is spent in the land sale is going to be distributed back to ILV stakers through revenue distribution. And we're going to cover this in a moment, but that tier 5 land can only be purchased with ETH. So as you guys can see, it truly is designed to do what Kieran is saying here, right? We're trying to get people to spend as much on ETH on this tier 5 land as possible, so that can go back in the pockets of the regular, everyday, average ILV staker. Let's talk about where everybody's going to find all of this land. We covered this a moment ago, and we showed you earlier the IlluviDex marketplace, and you can navigate around the marketplace and you can find all of the land by tiers and all of the filters that we showed you earlier. Don't need to cover that again. As you saw, the interface is extremely intuitive. You literally pick your tier of land, your region. You can zoom in and out of the map. It's so intuitive, so clean, so simple. We're really excited for people to use this marketplace. I think the team crushed it with how simple and easy to understand the interface is. But that is where you will be buying land, is through the IlluviDex, IlluviDex, IlluviDex. And let's talk about what you're going to need to have in your wallet to be able to buy any of these types of land. It's different with tier 1 through 4 land versus tier 5 land. So as you can see on the screen here, you can purchase tier 1 through 4 land using either ETH or not and, or SILV2, and you can't use both in a single transaction, right? So let's run through an example scenario here, Kieran, to help everybody understand this. So let's say my wallet right now is loaded with both ETH and SILV2. I see that tier 1 land I'm looking to buy in the land sale. I go ahead and I decide that I want to purchase. At that moment when I decide when I want to purchase, I'm going to have to decide what? Either to use my ETH or my SILV2 at the moment of purchase?
So you either purchase it with ETH or with SILV2. That's the only two options. I've actually never seen any protocol offer an acceptable, like a dual currency for purchasing a single item. But it's pretty interesting. But yeah, we don't have that either. So it's literally if you're purchasing an SILV2, then you need to buy the entire plot using that SILV2. If you're purchasing an ETH, same thing. It has to be all in ETH.
That makes sense. So everybody out there that's doing the math on what you want, you can't pay 50% of the bill with ETH, 50% of the bill with SILV2. It's all one or all the other. as you guys can see from this whole presentation, we want to give everyone as much choice and control on how they participate in our economy as possible. But this time, guys, just wanted to walk through this basic example. If I'm purchasing that tier 1 I've been talking about, I'm going to have to choose either SILV2 or ETH. And then with that transaction, I'm going to have to pay ETH for the gas fee to purchase. However,
correct.
After the purchase is done, I don't need to pay any more ETH gas fees after that, because the actual minting of the NFTs is going to be on IMX. And so that's why we're minting on Immutable X, so that you don't have to pay yet another Ethereum gas fee on top to actually mint that NFT. It's being minted on Immutable X, which will probably save millions and millions and millions in gas fees in this land sale, which is good. That means that everyone that's a part of our community or wants to participate is not getting crushed by, let's be honest, disgusting gas fees on Ethereum network. So that's tier 1 through 4 land. Tier 5 can only be purchased in ETH. This is, illustrative of what we talked about earlier. These 2 plots of tier 5 land. This is going to be obviously some whales. They're going to have a ton of ETH in their wallet. And the entire transaction here on tier 5 land is going to go back through revenue distribution to everyone who's staked their ILV tokens. ETH only, tier 5 land. There it is. Perfect. And then here's the other thing that everyone needs to know. Set up a MetaMask if you don't have one already. Now, obviously, pretty much everybody already has one, but just letting you know, MetaMask is what you'll need to use when it comes to participating in this land sale. It's going to be desktop only with MetaMask for this one. We want to enable mobile in the future, but it's desktop only. And the really critical thing that everybody needs to know here is that MetaMask is going to need to be connected to IMX to complete all of these transactions along the way. What would you like to add to this, Kieran?
The unfortunate thing was we weren't able to fully integrate the mobile MetaMask with IMX, which we put that out in the article 24 hours ago now, and I don't think there's been too many people complaining about that. Most people in crypto are using desktop, but it is something that we'll work on and have hopefully IlluviTars. It should be ready by then.
So one of the reasons why we've purchased or why we've partnered with Immutable X is so that the minting part of the transaction, when that land is minted, is going to be happening on IMX layer 2. If you don't care about what that is exactly, the point is there's no gas fee when the land is minted. So you don't have to pay yet another savage Ethereum gas fee. No gas
fee. Same thing when you're trading as well. So let's say you buy a whole bunch of land and your idea is to flip it the next day. Because you're flipping them on the IMX platform, the layer 2, there's no gas fees associated with that. So if you're used to trading on OpenSea, for example, you'll be used to paying those gas fees. They don't exist on IMX.
That's right. This is really, really exciting. And in IMX or Immutable X, their own game, for example, Gods Unchained, has the most number of NFTs of any game ever. And so they really know what they're doing here. And it's a scalable solution. And we're really excited to be partnered with them. It's a deep partnership with them because we anticipate there's going to be a lot of NFTs that are going to be minted for Illuvium. And IMX is the strongest partner in the space to help us with that. So once again, guys, this was a lot of talking with Kieran and I. Kieran and I have been talking about land nonstop. If you couldn't tell, we've been talking about land all day, every day. If you want to just read the article, go to illuvium.medium.com. You can also just click the play button at the top of the article. No joke. It'll just read you the article if you don't even want to read it. Please do your own research, everybody. Please look deeply into all of the aspects of this land sale. Make sure you do your own research and make sure that you fully understand what you're getting into and how all of this works. Any closing thoughts, Kieran, that you want to share with everyone today?
It's a pretty interesting time out there right now in terms of market conditions. The positive thing to look at, if I'm taking off my Illuvium hat and I'm just purely a community member, the pricing has essentially halved since going back, 8 weeks ago, just purely because the price of ETH has gone down. So obviously, I'm well aware that that might not help you if you had all of your currency in ETH or some other altcoin. But if you're new to the space and you've just found Illuvium, essentially that pricing is the starting pricing has just halved. And so I would be looking at that as an advantage in this time. But outside of that, we're just really, really super excited to get this first sale done. The biggest thing for me, the most exciting thing out of absolutely everything is that we get to demonstrate revenue distributions for the first time ever, right? And I'm super excited about that. As you know, what that means is all of this revenue goes back to the people that are staked in the protocol. It goes back to those community members. And so, a sale of this magnitude with this much hype around it and whatever, even though we are in a bear market, we're still going full scale ahead. We still think it's going to be a really, really awesome event. And I'm just super excited to be able to start distributing back revenue to the people who have backed us this entire time.
And that's great. I'm excited about it too. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I know this was a long one, but there's a lot to know about land. We'll see you in the next episode of Illuvium Insider, and stay safe out there. Adios, amigos.